if either one of ours goes south, we got a backup.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
So welcome, guys. Ed Caddy, we haven't seen you in a while. David is he's been around a couple of times, but he's in the middle of building a house and building steam locomotives. Um, so just a couple of quick announcements, heads up. Dan Free and DC have been working on bylaws. You might know that we're pursuing uh, to incorporate this group, the ACW Railroad Historical Society, for a variety of reasons. I'm not going to go into the details, but DC and Dan put together the bylaws, and we're going to vet them. We got a board which includes Joel, Roger Rossi, DC, myself, Paul Sismolewski, and I believe John Ott's willing to take a look to make sure we're not too much of a knucklehead situation for him to like sign up. And there's one other who I'm forgetting. Ooh, bad Tom. Anyway, so that's cool. Um, we've got a couple of guys that are checking into a CPA for us because we're going to be filing as a 501c4, I believe, which is a social group. It's informal and it's a lot less requirements, so to speak. Um, so that's moving along really well. As you know, the convention's coming up in Chattanooga. Enough said about that. July, of course, there's no virtual meet because we will be jamming in the Southlands. And then in August, we have Dr. Joe Bailey, who's going to do some deep dives with the Nashville and Northwestern Railroad. And then in September, we'll have Mike Willigall giving us an update on his City Point layout. And I got some openings for October, November, and December in case anybody wants to sign up for something. So with that, I really want to do a huge welcome to Will Shirey. I've met Will a number of times over at Charlie's place, and instead of saying anything, I'm just going to turn it over to Will, and he'll give you a little intro and take us on a ride.
Sounds great. So I'm going to share my screen here. So I sent a request.
Yep,
Sean might be the one. Let me know when you can see my screen.
not yet.
Okay, no worries. Oh, here we go. It might have been on my end. One second. There we go. So let me hit this and then
See it.
this. So let me know if anybody can see this first slide here.
Yep.
Yep, we can
Okay,
see it,
great.
and we probably should. The rest of us should probably be on mute.
Oh, you can chime in if you like. I don't mind a peanut gallery. I'm sure there's a lot of things you may want to say, so but that's up to you. It doesn't bother me.
Thank you, Will. I was just going to ask if you want to just speak through this and wait till
No,
the end, but okay.
this can be an open forum for sure. Um,
So you got your intro in this?
yeah. So this
Great.
is just the intro to my portfolio here. I'm Will. I am Charlie's nephew, um, for one. And for others, I am an artist and designer. I currently live in California in Topanga Canyon, which is a really cool sort of town full of artists and old hippies. Neil Young recorded a album down the street from me, and Will Geer started a theater up here, who was Grandpa Walden, for those if you recall.
Yep.
And I currently work at that theater now as a set designer and technical director.
Cool.
But I've done a lot of things over the years. And for those of you, I've been in the group since about 2010. Here's an image from 2011 of the boys leaning on a
Wow.
split rail. Some of you guys are here now, and some of these guys are driving the train over the Rainbow Bridge.
Right. Well said.
I've been kind of quietly in the background. I was here. I was the one that took this photo. But Um, and I've been kind of half foot in, half foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out rather, with the group. Um, but I've kind of been the knucklehead on a lot of these trips in the background. So there I'm doing my thing. But
It's
always
great.
happy to tag along. But it's really the artistry of it all that has got me intrigued in all this. The model making, the painting, the miniatures, the history, the Civil War, all of that is a little bit secondary to me personally, to be fair. But
Right.
um, but I do have a history. My personal history with the American Civil War begins when I was pretty young. And here I am on annual family trips that we would take. I grew up in Memphis, and on the left here is my grandfather, and that's my mom holding me up. And we're on we would vacation annually down in the Gulf, this little place called Dauphin Island,
Oh
and
yeah.
and we would take this ferry over to Fort Morgan every year, and I know this is the picture from that because you can tell by the oil rig in the distance. So we're there on the Gulf. But a beautiful place, white sands, blue water. And Fort Morgan, still intact, beautiful fort. They still do reenactments. I mean, there was one going on there when I was a kid. Um, and this was really kind of my first intro or really my first vivid memories of sort of understanding Civil War history. So this would have, this back here was probably in the late 80s. Um, and I remember the, beautiful brickwork, but it was always so hot. Walking around
Mm.
this place as a little guy just took forever. But I was really kind of the most intrigued by the gift shop. And
Oh boy.
these figures in particular that would be there every year. And if I was, lucky enough, I would be able to take a couple home with me. And it was those kind of classic green base plastic miniatures or toy soldiers rather, which, I looked up Britain's was the name of the company and detail line. So maybe some of you are familiar with these, pretty
Oh yeah.
classic. They were printed in 1971. So um, to me, I mean, this kind of captured like my sort of, you know, introduction rather to the Civil War, the American Civil War. And I was just, as a kid, I was just enamored with toys and miniature things, and still am. Um, but I remember these vividly, and this was always sort of the highlight of the going to Fort Morgan for me was going into the gift shop at the end and hoping they had a couple of these on the shelf that I could take home. Fast forward, I grew up and my creativity and my love for drawing and painting kind of flourished. And I went to study traditional drawing and painting techniques and landscape painting in Montana, where this is a picture of me in my studio there in Montana, probably 20 years ago, as a young man. Uh, yeah, and I learned at Montana State University is where I went to school, and they had the traditional sort of arts program, which I really gelled with, and I just was painting all the time, and really also that place, Montana, being beautiful, it really sort of touched my soul and became really sort of passionate about the outdoors and all the things there. Such an inspiring landscape. But yeah, I was trained classically, I guess, as a foundation was really important to me. So here's some of my drawing and paintings.
Wow.
I made money, working blue collar jobs in carpentry and then painting murals around town too. This picture on the left is actually I'm a little bit jumping in the timeline, but this was actually where I was living in Madison County in North Carolina. I worked 2 years as a carpenter's apprentice, and we restored the Madison County Courthouse, which it sort of it wasn't wartime, but I believe this was built in the 1890s. Um, so it's kind of a cool connection to kind of work, going from Charlie's working in 1 to 48 scale to going to here working 1 to 1. Um, yeah, now I live in California. Still sort of, in love with outdoors. Painting for my backyard on the left here, and then on the far right here I am back in Memphis, chained to the easel. Um,
You can't see it, guys, but he's got an ankle bracelet
Yeah.
with a chain bolted to the floor.
that's right. It's cushioned for comfort, so it's not too bad.
And that's a 16-foot easel.
Yeah, we'll see it later.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that just kind of gives you a little bit of kind of where I am, where I come from, sort of in my creative journey.
Nice.
And as Tom mentioned in the little email that sent out to this, I did attend graduate school in California, California Institute of the Arts, or CalArts, where I came out here about a little over 10 years ago, and I've remained out here. Um, CalArts was a wonderful experience for me. And I'd already been working on Charlie's layout, but he's always so gracious to let me kind of go live life and explore and, kind of do the things I want to do as well, and always come back. So the MNC Model Railroad is really kind of a legacy project for me.
Mhm.
But here at CalArts, I took all the carpentry experience and all the painting knowledge and all that, and got into designing theater and building sets. They had a wonderful shop there. Um, Here's a show I designed that made the CalArts School Instagram. How cool is that? My little claim to fame. I was kind of notorious for being cheap. I didn't have a lot of money, and I would just scribble drawings on napkins, or I would use materials from the lunchroom, like coffee stirs and straws and napkins, to like make models to be like, this is what I want to make. Um, but it all came together. I spent a lot of time at that school in the library in particular. They had an archives department, and the nice librarian that worked in the archives, I mean, I got to know very well. And I was really kind of on the hunt there, and just trying to learn and absorb as much as I could about how Walt Disney, who started that school, by the way, but was really intrigued by the artistry and the engineering that went into the theme parks. Um, so I really kind of delved deep into that. It was a big reason I went to that school. And it was there I kind of fell in love with the work of Peter Allen Shaw, who was kind of become famous between me and Charlie because he was the matte painter on The Great Locomotive Chase,
Wow.
among other like great works of Disney. And I kind of got into other designers like Joe Rohde and Tony Baxter, who on the right here. He designed Great Thunder Railroad in Disneyland, which is Disneyland's model railroad essentially.
Right.
And I got to work there too, which was really cool. And here I am on the left behind Tony Baxter on his ride, the Great Thunder Railroad.
Wow.
And it was such a cool experience, not only working for him, he got a real kick out of like when I would show him photos of the model railroads that we work on. But Disney is just infused with this love of train engineering and locomotive design, and it's just all over the park if you kind of look closely enough for it, and in the history there too. This is kind of cool. I wanted to share this. This is a painting that's in Disneyland, in I think it's called Great Moments with Lincoln. It's like the Lincoln animatronic attraction,
Hmm.
which unfortunately doesn't get a lot of traffic. But it's one of their legacy things. They'll never, I mean, at least when I was working there, I did pitch to them to try to move something else in that area. They're like, no, you can't touch, this is like sacred ground. Like I don't know if that's the way it is now, but um, but I was kind of intrigued by this image of this sort of, and I don't know who painted this, but it has that sort of like Disney quality, but depicting the American Civil War, which is pretty interesting. So
It,
kind of a cool find.
Tom, is that a Gettysburg
That's
Memorial?
Cemetery Hill there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. But does it, I mean, like the look of the character design, I mean, it has that sort of like Disney check of approval, but it's this sort of like, you know, kind of graphic image in a way. Um, there is a little bit of an animation they made for that Lincoln attraction, which I don't have video of, but it's still kind of cool to see, Walt Disney's, enthusiasm for the American Civil War sort of
Mm.
bleed into the park. Was always kind of happy to see these little like moments when I was over there. But I continued to work beyond school in theme park and attraction design. Here's just a couple quick slides of some of like the technical drawings and concept drawings that I would make.
Wow.
Um, here's some stuff for Knott's Berry Farm. So, all in good fun, right?
That's it.
Here's some stuff I did for Disney, which is now no longer under NDA. They didn't build this thing, so I can show it off. That was kind of the nature of this career too. It's like maybe like one out of 20 ideas would get made, but everything else just sort of lived in concept land, which is where I, like to work. So, but in all that span of time, from like Montana to North Carolina to Memphis to California, I've always had the Memphis and Charleston Railroad like as this sort of legacy project that I've kind of worked on throughout all those years. And it really is one of my like proudest artistic and creative achievements. And I think it's healthy for me to spend time away from it because whenever I go back to it, I'm just kind of like floored. And so for those of you guys that are have yet to see it, that are going to go see it this next month, I'm excited and I plan on being there. So you can shake my hand or slap me,
Great.
whatever you want to do.
Is that a mine entrance on the side of the hill below your mouth, slightly to the left? Is that like a
No,
mine?
I think it's just I like your imagination there. No, I think it's just a divot in the ground, just to kind of,
Okay.
yeah, maybe, maybe it could be a mine in the future. But yeah, the Memphis and Charleston Railroad, Charlie's layout in Memphis, Tennessee. It's very much a club layout. There've been many great minds and hands that have worked on it over the years, and continue to as well. Um, my concentration on it has been on the mural painting. There's mural that spans over, most of the layout backdrop. Some of you guys have seen it. Uh, Model making and model painting. Here's Nickajack Cave before it was installed. Um,
Wow. You know what? In a sense, these are like building sets,
totally. And I
right?
used a lot of, I mean, this image was in particular, was in my portfolio that got me into school, into CalArts. So
Nice.
it's definitely a big staple in my, portfolio for sure. Very proud of it. And then another aspect I worked on was model painting. Um, so we'll kind of that's kind of where we'll get into on this presentation is miniatures and miniature painting. So miniatures on the MNC. So the Memphis and Charleston Model Railroad is an equal employment opportunist. I mean, we employ various models on the layout. There's not particularly like continuity laws as long as it's within scale. And over the years, I mean, things have just developed. The 3D printing. We've got some of these models. Can you guys see my cursor? Some of these
Yeah.
models on the bottom are 3D printed models. on the far right, these are from the Borax 20 Mule team, which is perfectly in scale with O-scale. So we use a lot of that. So vintage models, vintage plastic models. And then at the top, these metal models are from Sash and Saber, which we'll get into quite a bit in the presentation. So, it's like I said, equal opportunity employment on this railroad. And Charlie's even commissioned. I wish I had more photos of and knowledge of the guy that made these, but he handmade some of these models, and I mean they're a little wonky, I suppose, like in like I don't know if wonky is the right word, but disproportionate. But I love them. They have so much character, and they add so much sort of pizzazz, I think, to the layout. So if you go see the layout coming up, look for these, handmade miniatures. There's sort of there's quite a few in some of the key um, features on the layout, and I love them. Charlie, do you remember the guy's name?
He he's watching tonight.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't do my homework to cite you, but hopefully, I'm just in
There's
love with his
one.
work.
Well, wonky was certainly a complimentary term. I would say
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, I mean, my whole life is wonky, so just take that with a
Then it is a compliment.
yeah. It's a term of endearment from me. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I love it. I sometimes think some of the 3D printed ones are almost too perfect. So I tend to love these type of miniatures, and then the ones that are Sash and Saber, which are sculpted and then cast. When things are a little bit misproportionate, I tend to like that more than something that's 3D printed. It's just a little too perfect, if that makes sense. And we'll get
You,
into all this in a little
we,
bit.
we've got two or three areas that are almost pure Marty Vaughn. And
Oh, Marty Vaughn, there he
yeah,
is.
they're
He's the
fabulous.
man. So yeah, Marty Vaughn. This is one of. Look at that guy. Look at that cigar. It's incredible. Um, I'm not sure. Charlie commissioned another artist painted these miniatures, and I'm not sure where they're from. He did put them on these big washer bases, which was a choice, but they're very cool too. We've got a lot of those guys scattered around. Some of them are barefoot. I don't think I have any barefoot men in here, but that's one thing I like about these models. Is some of the Confederates are running into battle barefoot. Also, woodland scenics, men, if they fit and apply, again, equal opportunity is the name of the game. So here's some, woodland scenics guys hoisting up planks to build the fort at Raccoon Gorge, Running Water Creek.
Well, hearing your Disney background, I keep looking in the clouds to see if I can see shapes in there of animals and things.
I have hidden a few things in the murals over the years, some that I've told, and some of them I will take to the grave.
Uh-oh.
That's just for fun, that's for me. But no, I've got a couple hidden little treasures in there. The grandkids love it. And then here's a Borax 20 Mule team. Painted up. We bought on eBay. We bought as much as for a couple of years there. Anytime one would pop up on eBay, I would snatch it because we needed mules, and it was the only at the time. It was the only. This is kind of before the advent of 3D printing. It was the only way we could find mules in O-scale. And I believe there's probably 3 or 4 different poses of the mules in that kit, and you would of course get 20. Um, so I have painted my fair share of those borax mules, but they look fantastic, and this is even though you can't see, you're just sort of seeing front end of one of the borax wagons there. This one wasn't kit bashed or anything. I just made this one sort of as is by the instructions. So that model kit came out a little bit before my time, but it was fun to put together nonetheless. Um, if you can kind of look down in the bottom quadrant, these are some of the 3D printed models. These are some of the newer, within the last 5 years, 3 to 5 years, 3D printing's gotten really good. And so I would say the only caveat, or maybe the only thing about 3D printing is they're pretty brittle. Um, that's one thing I kind of dislike about them, I suppose. But little greeblings or rifles will tend to break off. So there's a little bit of futzing with putting them together or keeping them intact. But I think by and large they look good. Again, with 3D printing, it's pretty cool, but it begins to be a little weird to me because they're too realistic in a way, like I was saying earlier, and I like a little bit of wonk for sure.
So can
But
I
yeah,
ask
here's some other 3D. Oh, go ahead.
on the last picture, I just had a quick question about it.
Sure.
Um, First, is that hand laid track in there?
That is hand-laid track by Charlie Taylor.
Wow. And then the scene itself blends from the painted backdrop to the actual scenery. Um, how long does it take to learn to do that skill to get that to blend so nicely?
Lifetime.
Oh my
You're
goodness.
looking at it.
So I'm out of time.
Like I said, I mean, I've been painting for a long time. The detail, I mean, it just takes practice. I suppose, I appreciate that. I'll take that as a compliment. I mean, back here, I've got these men are painted into the mural, as are these. And yeah, and we wanted some of those illusion kind of moments with this layout, which you know, actually, it's most of the layout, really. Most of the mural has stuff that kind of comes up one to one with a model. You'll see scenes of physical models pointed towards the mural because they're talking to someone in the mural,
Wow.
or a horse on a trail, or I think there's even a train track that goes off into the two-dimensional mural. Um, but that's where the fun is, the sort of. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit insane, sure, but I find that that meticulous work kind of it pays off in the long run.
That's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Quick
But
question.
it comes to life. A lot of this stuff comes to life with what's on the table as well. They kind of dictate each other as far as like color
You got
goes.
you got a quick question, somebody said, I think, Will.
Go ahead.
Yeah, do you color match the pigments in the for the mural with the foreground stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. As best as I can. A lot of it's a lot of the same paint. Particularly if it's like right up on there. Yes, that's kind of the blending part of it. Yeah, comes into play for
Well,
sure.
this is Marty Vaughn. I wanted to compliment you because the first time I saw Charlie's layout, I've always been interested in figures, so I'm taking pictures of the scene of men unloading a wagon. And it wasn't until I got back to my hotel room and was looking at it later that I realized two of the figures were three-dimensional and the other three were painted on the backdrop. And I didn't notice that when I was actually taking the photograph.
Oh wow, thank you. Yeah, yeah. I don't want to reveal all the cards on the layout. I know that scene you're talking about. So for any of you guys that are gonna see it for the first time coming up, there's some things you'll enjoy that aren't in this presentation. But thank you very much. Here's some other 3D printed miniatures that have come out recently. I forgot where Charlie picked these up online.
Spear or
Spira. Okay.
yeah.
And this is the cool coffee maker. We have this, I believe it's in Stevenson encampment. Adds a lot of life to the scene. I mean, and 10 years ago, you wouldn't even think you'd get a Union soldier sipping a cup of coffee. So, as a miniature without having to scratch make it yourself. So, the advent of 3D printing is very cool. I don't want it to like take away from the artistry of people like Marty or that or the guys that sculpt for the castings, but it's good to have both, it's a big world out there. The 3D printed stuff I think really hits well with like things that aren't organic, like these ambulances here. When they're cleaned up and painted up, I think they look pretty fantastic. So here's some of the
Yes.
ambulance kits that I painted.
Gorgeous.
Hmm.
And just the detail, I mean, that they can get on these prints is pretty phenomenal. So here again, they work really well as limbers, and there's that uh there's that coffee maker. Man, it'd be cool to have one of those. It would be. I think I might have joked with Charlie, like, yeah, we should get one of these for the next convention so you have it
Uh,
outside.
the Christian Commission reenactors made one in
Oh,
life size.
fantastic.
I've seen it at Gettysburg
Okay, that's great.
at the
I love
reenactment. So if you go there this year or any year, you may actually be able to get a cup of coffee out of it.
I love it. Oh, that's great. But yeah, you can kind of like squint your eyes and see the detail that comes out of these is getting just better and better, year to year. I think this barrel is actually a borax mule team barrel, but everything else is, 3D printed. And then Sash and Saber. So Sash and Saber is kind of where a lot of the miniatures that I paint are from Sash and Saber, um, which I'll show you kind of where we source those. They're pewter miniatures, and they're all over the layout now, which, gosh, I mean, I really think the miniatures really make the scene. As I'll get into later, the painting the miniatures was the first thing Charlie and I collaborated on, and I'll tell that story in a minute. And it's all I really wanted to do on this layout the most was to like paint the miniatures. Um, I painted, maybe a dozen for him, and he said, "Great." Then I moved on. The next 10 years was painting murals and landscape. But then now, recently, this year, I've been painting miniatures again. So it's patience paid off. And now I'm painting miniatures
So
again.
those are Confederate Zouaves. Uh,
Yeah, setting up a little ambush here and Charlie's grandson likes to set these up, but I think, there's a bit of historical value going on. He knows what he's doing too. Oh, back here is a bear. I didn't paint this, but when his grandkids were younger and they come over quite often, I would move this bear around the layout, and they would get so excited looking for this bear. So I don't know if he's coming out. So this is a cave he's coming out of here. Sometimes he'd be on the train. Sometimes he'd be taking a sip of water down to the river or something. But so much fun, so much fun. I mean, that little kid in me that was after those Britons, toy soldiers at Fort Morgan, it's a true return to form, and that inner child in me is thriving, playing and setting up and painting all these. It's just this is where this is where my excitement in this group is heightened when it comes to, again, to the artistry and the creative, aspects of modeling. But I've learned so much, as we'll get into, about the American Civil War through this project, and just having to kind of stay on continuity, and we'll get into that too. But with just being, as accurate as I can be with color choices and all of that with what I paint the miniatures. So here's a couple more photos from the layout. These are Sash and Saber cavalry. Yeah, there's some painted cavalry in the backdrop over here. This is a good scene. But yeah, Sash and Saber. Um, it's sashandsaber.com. Charlie's been buying these miniatures before I think the first layer of like first track was even laid. I think he was kind of collecting some of these miniatures, which there's two sizes, and they're kind of in that war game scale. So 40 millimeter, which is a little tall technically for O scale, but we let it slide. I mean, I think a full grown, human being is about 38 millimeters in O scale. So, the variance isn't terrible. These are just really strong, tall guys out there, I guess. And then they do cast them in 28 millimeter, which would be a little too big for HO scale, I'm afraid. But if you're, I still think it's such a great pastime that I would encourage anybody to get into, miniature painting. So even if you're modeling an HO scale, it's always a fun time to pick some of these up and give them a paint. Maybe you're interested in a specific regiment or infantry unit. They've got so many different sculptures, castings of poses. There's artillery units, infantry units, cavalry, the whole gamut. And and I'm just so impressed with the sculpting of these miniatures. And I've been painting miniatures a long time, and the paint job on a miniature really can only be as good as the sculpting of the miniature. So I find so many little details in these miniatures, and they are just so historically accurate. And we'll get into later like some discoveries I've made of like, what is this little element on the hat or the jacket? And so that sends me down, the research rabbit hole, and like, oh, okay. So
Will, quick
I've learned a
question.
lot. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I don't want to preempt it, but are you going to be telling us a little bit about your process for like prepping and how you color them?
Absolutely. I've got a whole
Cool.
video for you.
Oh, I hope that works. Good.
Yeah, yeah, same. Otherwise, I'll pantomime. Um, but in 2010, we went. The group was in Richmond. Oh no, well, were we in Richmond? Alexandria,
Right.
and
Alexandria.
and I spotted a couple Session Saber miniatures on Bernie's layout, who's also an O scale. And if it's good enough for Bernie, it's good enough for me. So if they're a little tall, hey, Kempinski's got it on his. So, but I spotted some of them on his beautiful layout, and if that was a great trip too, to kind of before it was really before the hammer hit the anvil on the Memphis and Charleston. I got to see Bernie's layout, and I don't think Charlie was on that trip with me, and I think it was my first kind of introduction to the group in 2010, and I'm sure a couple of you guys were like, who is this kid? And I remember Bernie was like, "What are you doing?" When I was taking too many pictures of his layout because I was just trying to get like good reference for what we were about to undertake. He was totally fine with it. I'm totally joking, but it was really cool to see, who I revered as, kind of a master modeler, and his process and his workbench. He kind of snapped at me when I was taking pictures of under the hood. I was taking a couple pictures of his wiring underneath the table.
Yeah.
But
Those
but anyway,
faces are
all in good
amazing.
fun. All in good fun.
Those faces are amazing. The number 2 and 3 person there.
Yeah, 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 incredible. Yeah, and that's just a testament to the sculpting, of this company, these guys, Sash and Saber. So yeah, and I, it was a little bit before that. I think even in like 2009, maybe, maybe 2008, when Charlie was kind of really gearing up to make a play on building this layout, and these were sort of pre-development day, early development days, and like I said, he had sort of started to source some of these miniatures, and he sent an artillery crew out to me. I was living in Montana, and I started painting them for him, and yeah, I think the first thing I did was an artillery unit, a Union artillery unit, and a And Session Saber also makes this cannon, and yeah, and this was really, these were like my first strides in the first kind of work I did for Charlie, were painting these miniatures here. And
Wow.
and I can even see, like, I can still see my hand in these, but I think my painting style has changed over the years, which we'll get into. But I'm still, impressed with these. Again, the sculpting of these are just incredible. I mean, these guys have teeth, and individual buttons, and there's laces on the shoes, and these guys are only like an inch and a half tall. So, the the nails and the limber, everything is just, it's almost like, the research they must have done. I trust that they really dove into, you know, their stuff when they were making these things initially. Here's a couple other those early days miniatures that I painted. I mean, yeah, some of these guys even have glasses.
Hmm.
Couple Confederates. Um,
Cool
yeah,
poses.
so here's both that 40 millimeters on the three on the left here, and then these are those 28 millimeter, which we kind of experimented at one point, I think, doing a forced perspective
Yep.
scene. But the layout on the MNC, the tables, it just didn't quite work. I think maybe it would, if you had a bit more draw on the table. Um, but it's still kind of fun to paint. And I mean, the detail in the 28 millimeter guys is still pretty incredible. And I think we commissioned a couple of these guys, maybe without the beards, to be, powder monkeys, little, you know, younger guys employed by the army. So I think a couple of these guys have made it on the layout. Um, here's sort of early days of one of the forts that Charlie built. And yep, and he had while he was building that fort, I was painting more artillery units. So good stuff here. Here's the fort finished, now under Union occupation.
Wow. Very cool.
So yeah, Sash and Saber miniatures. A couple of these cannons are not Sash and Saber, but some of them are. But as far as I can tell, all the miniatures are Sash and Saber. So even though it's a little tall, it still works on the layout. And I think they just look great, fantastic.
Very good perspective too. I mean, with the figures in the middle ground there, and then you got the hills in the far in the background.
Yeah,
Nice
it's a
perspective.
fun scene. That's probably only like 2.5, 2 feet or something.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of a short draw, but that's where you're able to get that illusion with the mural painting, and that'll be a whole other presentation. The mural, which I'll be happy to do later on. Oh, here's kind of another angle on that fort coming around the corner there. Troops on the move. So at the top of the year, I had about 100 or so miniatures from Sash and Saber to paint to kind of gear up for next month, and to populate the layout, which again was always kind of what I've been looking forward to in a lot of ways. The most on this project, on this layout, was painting the miniatures. It just really is, does something to me. I can slow down time. It's a great way to for me to, spend my time. I've always enjoyed painting miniatures. Again, it goes back to that little boy after those toy soldiers in the Fort Morgan. Okay, so process. I was gonna do kind of some slides in step. Maybe I should have done that, but I did make a video for Charlie a couple years back because I'm not the only one that paints these miniatures. His oldest grandson was getting into it, and Charlie himself was painting quite a few miniatures, and he kind of wanted to see, step by step. So I'm going to see if I can exit out of here and show you that video, which is right here. And I'm going to enlarge. So we're going to see if this works.
Well, howdy there, Mr. Bracken. Today,
Oh, for context, Mr. Bracken is Charlie. That's just a reference from the Great Locomotive Chase, from a scene of Mr. Bracken was the
Oh yeah.
conductor, and Henry is the little boy that's kind of frying bacon on the glory hole, or whatever that thing is, that cast iron door where you'd open to throw.
Starbucks. Yeah.
So I'm Henry, he's Mr. Bracken.
well, howdy there, Mr. Bracken. Today we're going to look at painting some miniatures, some Confederate soldiers of the artillery sort. I'm going to take you step by step from assembly, base coating, all the way to finish details. So let's go ahead and start with step one. The Sash and Saber miniatures, they come in pieces and that you'll need to clean and assemble. Use a little bit of super glue there to put them together. And the next step is putting in the texture on the bases. I'm just using a simple mixture of PVA glue or Elmer's glue works fine. Give that Elmer's glue a quick brush on the base and then use a little sand from the garden to add a little texture to the base. When that step's done, I just add a couple drops of scenic cement for reassurance. That's going to help hold that stuff down. I wait overnight before I spray prime the miniatures. I'm using Scar White here, Citadel brand. Give it a nice coat. And then we're on to the next step, which is base coating. Here I'll show you what colors and paints I'm using. I'm using a variation of brands. The model color Vallejo paints. And I'm kind of referencing the artillery uniforms of the Confederate soldiers, which are kind of varying in colors of blue, grays, and even tan. So you can see here, I'm kind of picked some colors that fit that color scheme. And in this step, I'm just kind of painting the uniforms, the jackets, pants, the hats. Just get a nice kind of even coat on that part of the miniature, as you can see here. Just making sure all that the white parts of the jackets and the pants are covered, nice and even. And now it's on to washes. I'll use a little bit of skin wash on the flesh parts, the hands, the faces. And then when the base coat's dry, I'll even go in using some Citadel Melon oil with some of that earth shade, sort of a brown wash over the uniforms.
Wow.
I'm using a little bit of the contrast brown here to take care of the leather parts, like this satchel, sometimes the hat. Just kind of give it a nice coat. We're just trying to, at this point, making sure all the white that's coming through from the primer has been covered. This Melon oil wash really kind of helps tone down the blue of this blue-gray miniature here to kind of give it more of that Confederate blue as opposed to that Union Army blue. This is the fun part too. This just really lets the the miniature, the sculpture of the miniature really shine through. Those washes really kind of get in the creases around the buttons and really kind of help let the sculpture of the miniature pop out. So in the kind of next stage here, we're getting into what I call blocking. And really what this is um, well, I'll show you in a second, but kind of just getting into the final touches of the details. The buttons here, the teeth, maybe some skin, flesh tones covered up. But yeah, here we go, and some of the blocking. So what that means is I'm not giving a full coat over what's already been painted. I'm just kind of going around, leaving some of the negative space, some of the creases, some of the uh, paint that's already been applied to kind of not cover that up, but let that kind of shine through and block out all the rest. And then if needed, I'll sort of add a little bit more diluted wash here and there for mud, some muddy pants at the bottom of the cuff or highlight some more of the creases, and then we're off to the races.
It's a beautiful thing. There he is. I know that was a little fast in areas. My editing might be a little, I kind of sped up some of that there. Happy to go back through this if anybody has any questions.
One question I have is, what's the name of the wash that you used?
Yeah, I'll show you. So I've been pretty loyal to this brand of paint called Citadel for a long time.
Citadel.
They make like a war game called Warhammer.
Oh yeah.
And this is their paint that goes with it. And it's wonderful. And they just have they have all kinds of paint now. One of them is their shade line. So Nuln Oil is one I use often. There's one called Earth Shade. Uh, and that's kind of what I'm gonna kind of scrub through this. But that Nuln Oil is kind of what happens here.
Right.
Citadel Nuln
I know
Oil.
that's a little fast, but trying to stop it so it's being a little jittery. But that's kind of what gives you right here. I'm not taking a brush and painting these lines. I'm using that kind of oil, that Nuln Oil, that wash shade. It finds those creases and it kind of does a lot of the work for you. Um, that's how I'm able to get those hard lines around the buttons.
Yep.
It just kind of goes, and it's kind of like diluting paints and letting that kind of find, those pockets, those creases, those folds.
And the
Wash.
hands to those fingers, is that a different wash, or did that same wash do the fingers?
The wash, I'm using different washes for the skin. There's a skin wash that it kind of goes on, and on these particular ones, it goes on kind of dark, kind of almost looks like they're sunburned. But
Mhm.
but when you go from this step, this step right here has just skin wash, and that's what gets in those fingers there.
When you say skin wash, is this paint that you've diluted?
Oh no, it's just called flesh wash, I believe, from Citadel.
Got it.
Um, Vallejo, they also have shades and washes too. Vallejo Army Painter
Hmm.
is another brand that we use. They all have kind of their own sort of shades and washes. I'm using kind of a mixed bag, but the process of putting like the skin tone on is it's a white face from the primer, and then when I put that flesh wash on, it turns out to look like this. I like using white primer because allows that light to shine through the paint you apply onto it, especially if you're using diluted washes or not just using opaque paint, but
Mhm.
so that's how I'm able to still see sort of some of that shine, that's kind of happening. Um, and then from this step, I'll just take flesh colored paint, mix that up. Um, I typically don't go straight from the bottle. This kind of a weird thing that happened to me in school somewhere where I had a teacher that didn't like pigment straight from the bottle. There's always kind of a mixture. So I don't know if this is, one to one, like some skin color from a bottle. It's probably a mixture of a couple different ones. Um, all that to be said, that doesn't matter. But I'm just painting kind of like highlights almost, not dry brushing, but in a sense that blocking technique, which is a weird term. I just don't like the term wet brush for whatever reason, but um, it really just feels like I'm leaving like these lines in the face here that you can see that's from here, like these divots. I'm just trying not to let paint go into those places. And if it does, no big deal. You can just add more wash. There's no, I don't know. I don't think there's any rules with painting. There's technique, but if you mess up, it's easy to it's just another couple layers to fix it. So no big deal.
What looks really good is there's a dullness, so it looks almost like fabric. Is that just the paint?
This
And
is just a base coat on this one, and then I've applied some of that wash onto this one.
got it.
And sometimes it kind of creates a little too much. That's why I go back on top of the wash. Like this miniature here has been washed.
Yep.
Some places it's fine. Like the bag, I probably didn't touch the bag from here. But, I think I probably, I can hear, yeah, here's some more of the washing technique.
That looks
But you
great.
can see what I mean. Like it kind of creates an outline for you. So I know now to take black, and it's almost like I'm just kind of coloring in the lines, in a
Yep.
sense, but when I paint that belt.
Is there a particular brush brand that you like? Or no?
I've got a mixed bag. These are Army Painter brushes. The brand Army Painter makes
Okay.
makes their own. I've been pretty happy with those. I don't really have. I'm not really brand loyal, but Army Painter helps. So yeah, in here I can kind of see where I'm painting on top of the layer that's been washed. So you can see like almost where I've got the cursor. This is a bit more opaque. I've gone back over
Yeah.
with a little bit more gray.
Okay.
And I
Now, when you
know
say
close.
gray, as it gray as in wash?
Oh, no, this would just be more like opaque paint,
Got
like
it.
mono
Oh,
paint.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
hmm you could stop here on the left where I have my cursor. I mean, I just get kind of nitpicky in some respects. It's hard to define the process, but and also my standards are too high. There's a thing in theater we call the 30-foot rule, where someone in the audience isn't really going to see the mouse you painted at the foot of the door. And I would say scale wise, when these are on the table and you're standing above them, you're probably like a couple 100 feet away from them. So in scale. So, maybe not that much, but you don't have to, you know, necessarily paint every button, right? But when you take photos and when you get those
Yeah.
great shots to send off
Yep.
to model railroad or whatever, it helps to kind of,
Uh,
and also it's fun. It's fun. For me, I love the little details. So yeah, I mean this brush is probably Army Painter detail, hyper detail brush.
That's a good looking figure. I love all the muddiness of it, the
Oh
wornness.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just slowly layering up. I mean, take time. I know I was speeding through it in the time lapse, but I think on average, I think it takes me I forgot what it was. Maybe it's like 3 hours per miniature.
Whoa.
Because I'm really kind of going in there.
I was just going to ask you, will you, if people want you to paint their figures, will you offer the same rate you that your uncle pays you?
We'll talk.
Okay.
Um, we'll talk. So, okay, hopefully that was informative. I've got a little bit left in the slideshow.
Go.
All right. Let me go to, here we are. All right. So yeah, referencing. So whenever I paint, I mean, as any good painter, we got to have reference, and it's and any guys that are modeling railroads, research and references is just paramount. That's really step one, really. It's just making sure I've got the right art direction needed to move forward with choosing colors um, and as we all know, the Civil War was wonderfully photographed, but in black and white. And but there's still ways to find good references for color. Here's my list in ascending order as far as what I like. Artifacts, so stuff from real life, obviously, museums, artwork, paintings, drawings, either commissioned by a museum or, I trust that beautiful oil paintings of the Civil War, that artist was doing their due diligence with, getting things correct. Same with illustrations. Film and television, same thing, there's a lot of great color films of the American Civil War, which I'm sure we all have our own favorites. Reenactment images, guys that are doing the reenactments, they go full tilt when it comes to authenticity. So, I do trust a lot of those choices. Other painted miniatures from the web, it's good reference too. Internet forums and groups are typically a good place to find things, this group in particular. And then at the bottom of the list, AI. I'll show you some each examples of these real quick. So artifacts. So, like Tom here, there's nothing like seeing the thing in real life, and really getting a sense of kind of where these elements go. Cannons in particular. And these are a couple photos I took from some of our, group outings. So the Sash and Saber cannon comes with no instructions and all these little greeblies. And if you don't know where to put them, you kind of like, you might be up a
Yes.
creek if you haven't done your research. So that's why, uh, and they have a couple different variations in cannons. A couple of you artillery guys would know the difference here more than I would. But these are the two Sash and Saber uh, cannons variations. Um, but yeah, going to see, that's what's so great about this group and going on these annual outings. It's, every now and then, depending on what you're working on, you might get the actual like one-to-one real reference right there. So, all those little greeblies, now I know where they go on the cannon. And kind of learning a little bit about what each thing does too, what holds what.
Yep.
So I can go back and look at those photos and kind of make the right call as far as where these little pieces go. Um, Here's a little step by step. On the left, I've primed white, the miniature. Um, on top of the white primer, I'm putting, this is kind of another Citadel brand called Contrast. It works pretty similarly to like that Nuln oil. Gets in those nooks and crannies. And then I'm kind of doing that base coat. This one here is, I believe
Oh,
it's
mission models.
yeah, Mission Models. It's kind of
They're
an
good.
airbrush paint, but it was just kind of dead to rights, the right sort of army green that I was seeing, I know these were probably repainted, of course, but it's
Close
still kind
enough.
of close enough, right? Yeah. So again, yeah, I kind of know now where a lot of these little accoutrements go. I might have put this one on the wrong side actually, but again, close enough. So here's these. So yeah, again, nothing like artifacts and seeing the real thing. I think this is a Kempinski model here in a museum. Um, just want to give a shout out to DC. Um, again, artifacts can also be, you can find images online, of course. You guys know all this. Let a lot of this wash over you if I'm just speaking ignorant. But um, these artifacts give you a real sense of like what colors, you know, go where and knowing what denotes, particularly with the Union cavalry, Union Army and Confederate armies, if you're painting artillery, put the yellow paint away. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff obviously online. Artwork is another great reference.
Briani
Yeah,
and
great
Rocco.
Italian painter. This guy knew his stuff. I mean, I'm just in awe of his handle on proportion and perspective on a two-dimensional plane is honestly unreal. But also, I trust that he was nailing the colors on these too. So I've relied heavily on
Troiani actually has
Giuliani.
an entire like haberdashery of uniforms.
Oh, perfect. And I'm
He's
sure,
got
yeah, that
a,
makes sense. And maybe he would have somebody wear one and pose.
that's exactly what he did.
So, a lot of the work has been done for a guy like me, who's, I can rely on a lot of these artists before me that have
Right.
done a lot of the homework in a
Yep.
sense. Um, Illustrations too, they're coming from the almanac or wherever. Um,
Osprey.
mhm.
Yep.
Good stuff. Again, stuff from, the Civil War Almanac, probably. Or maybe this could even be a painter's guide on a miniature kit or something.
Mm.
That's what's kind of on the table here in front of these horses is just the model master. Sometimes you would get like a kind of an overview of like what colors to use.
Wow.
So that's helpful at times. These are the Sash and Saber horses sort of in process. Also making sure I know what kind of horses, were used in the Civil War. And so so film and television, again, we all have our favorites. Memphis and Charleston loves Disney's Great Locomotive Chase. Here's
Oh
actually a
man.
little,
Wow.
we call this scene on the layout the Disney cut because it
Huh.
cuts through and we kind of tried to cold cock this scene here.
Nice job. Yeah, I remember seeing that. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's a fun one. And I trust that Disney, again, he was doing his due diligence with putting this Civil War in color. I trust his art direction and Peter Ellenshaw, who was on this project, and the art department and the costumes team. I mean, this is the Disney standard. I've worked for them. It's no joke. Other favorite of mine, Glory.
Mm.
Just great film, but also, you just trust the homework that the art department and costume design did, So I love referencing these films. I've even hit a couple of my favorite characters in the layout. So here's Kevin Costner in miniature form that I've kind of pieced together. So there's Dances with Wolves right here.
Nice.
Um, Reenactment photos again, good source of inspiration, particularly with Confederate Army, where it wasn't so uniform in the uniform color, so to speak. It was kind of a mixed bag. Kind
Right.
of looked like a, peppercorn, just all kinds of different shades of browns and grays and tans. And, you can kind of trust that these guys, again, kind of know what they're doing. I don't know about the shoe choice. Yeah, pretty good. Every now and then you'll see somebody wearing like a Rolex or something. But well, maybe not a Rolex, but Timex. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, also I don't know who painted this image on the, oh, I'm sorry. But sometimes I look at other painted miniatures. Especially when it comes down to the little details. So as I've been working on this, especially with these particular models, Sash and Saber, I've made a couple little discoveries where I'm like, what is this? In the detail. And one of them I noticed were these little stars that were on the hats on a few of these miniatures, and as I didn't even really see it until I did that wash step, and I'd see these little stars, and it kind of got me down that rabbit hole of like, okay, what's going on here? And I'm sure you guys probably know some of this stuff already, but if you don't, I'll let you know best I can what I found.
Texas. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this was from a Facebook group. Somebody found one. I think it was a metal detector, treasure hunter type, found one of these metal stars. Um, and yes, Texas Star hat. So that could be what Session Saber was going for. I did kind of dig a little deeper. There's another forum I was on where
Oh,
this
wow.
this this slide explains that there um, one of the most famous down here on the third paragraph, the Bonnie Blue flag was presented to the Mississippi Secession Convention um, amid cheers after the Ordinance of Secession was passed in 1861. It was soon after applied to the state flag. That might explain why the Lone Star is what they call that, was also worn by so many Mississippi troops. So it's appropriate to the MNC, as far as I'm concerned. A couple of these guys were probably down there in the Southern Regiment. So did a little more digging and found some old portraits. And these are from the Alabama infantry. And here they
Interesting.
have the star on their hats.
Wow.
So I just, I totally would not have picked this up if it wasn't for those miniatures and that detail and the homework that sculptor did to do that, which led me down this fun little discovery path, which I thought you guys would
Interesting.
appreciate. Um, here's Private John Jones.
Wow.
Uh,
Interesting that all these different regiments had a star on their hat.
yeah,
That's wild.
and I haven't dug much further than this. Other just kind of making sure I wasn't putting like, oh shoot, hope this isn't like the troops from Connecticut or something. I'm putting on the Confederate soldiers, but yeah, you just making sure I was doing my due diligence there, and it turned out all was good. Kind of a
It,
cool little discovery through the beauty of miniature painting. Uh,
Charlie?
yeah,
this interesting to me. I may have two great whatever grandpappies from the 39th Mississippi.
really.
I'm this
Let me
fascinating.
see.
So
I can kind of see a family resemblance. The eyes are a little too close, but
yeah,
he's kind of got that Taylor beard, bushy brow. Yeah, you never know. But happy to have a couple of these Lone Star
oh look at that.
units on the layout now. So there's just so much history and little things, little details like this that are on Charlie's layout that sometimes are on purpose and sometimes just kind of happen by happenstance, and then that sort of you know sometimes beautiful happy accidents happen too.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of the joy of painting. Okay, AI, just real quick, AI is kind of wild. And if you Google search Civil War AI, you'll get a lot of mixed bag. And I like I mean, as far as of now, 2026, I mean, this stuff's getting better and better, and or I don't know, better. But anyway, AI to me for now is like the telephone game, we play as kids where you start at the end of you get a line of kids up, you tell one kid at one end of the line, like, slimy worm. And then he tells the guy next to him, and he tells the guy next to him. And by the end of it, it comes back as, Frederick Douglass or something, something wildly different. So
So it starts as
right. I mean, that was a bad example, but you get the idea. So I kind of feel like AI is a little bit like that. It's cool to run an image like this through AI to color it, but look what happened to the belt. We lost some authenticity there. Now he's got
Yeah.
a band of buttons on this sleeve, and you know, it's
It's
again.
not accurate.
I
It's
would just
not
say
accurate.
tread lightly with AI
Yeah.
now. Um, that's all I have to say. But I do think some of it's cool. I've seen Bernie Kempinski animate some of his miniatures with AI, and that's got Charlie and I kind of like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's kind of blowing our minds a little bit of like seeing, um, it's cool to see the locomotives move and animate the layout, but maybe we could take a still photo of our troops coming in over here, and seeing them actually like animate that would be mind blowing. So, for those reasons, I'm all for it. But when it comes to visual references, like I said, tread lightly, but it's cool.
What
Um, the
is
last little
that?
segment of my presentation here is just painting styles. I put it in quotation because I don't know what style is. I mean, clearly, but I think that just comes with practice and patience. And when you look at some of, miniatures online, which I tend to do sometimes, but my mind kind of melts a little bit when I look at something like this, which is probably for competition or maybe or who knows, but it's just almost like hyper real, especially with Sash and Saber too. You could paint those things as, if you've got the time and the patience and the eyesight to do it, you can go as hyper real as you want. And that's a style for sure. Um, it's kind of like looking at a Chuck Close painting on the left here in a museum. I mean, I mean, this guy could paint hyper realistically. Um, but another artist I admire, Mike Mignola, who's a graphic artist. When I look at these two images side by side, I'm still seeing a bearded guy, like my brain still registers a portrait of a bearded man. Now, one obviously is painstakingly, painted with precision and detail, and the other one is a bit more stylized. And I have noticed this in miniature painting as well. So on the left here is this is an old image of an old miniature, and it kind of has that graphic style, like I was referencing it, like the way that Mike kind of does these hard lines. He's not drawing the eye out. He's kind of concentrating on the shadow. Um, and it's kind of what's happening here, right? And I'm not seeing like hyper detail in the cloth, but I'm seeing more of a graphic approach to a three-dimensional object. And that kind of like I love this almost a little bit more than I love this. And that's just my particular taste. Um, so I've tried to kind of incorporate this style, over the years into my painting. So I've painted this one on the right, kind of in that sort of more graphic style. So
Mhm.
just something to think about. I don't think there's any right or wrong way. Again, like I said earlier, there's no rules. As long as you're having fun, that's the only rule.
Right. It's
Uh,
just preference. Yep.
And I think something like this looks great, particularly against something that's like a lot of our buildings are kind of hyper real. The locomotives are just hyper real. So having a little bit of imbalance, and that's why I think Marty's miniatures are great too. I don't know, you need that element. Otherwise, you know I don't know, like I could look at this image a lot more longer than I could look at this one. I get honestly, I can get kind of bored, and that might be me being weird, but um, just something about this just screams like a human painted this, and I like that. So just have fun with it. That's all I really have, I think, at this point. It's all about fun when it comes to these things, ultimately with painting. Um, and that's it. That's all I got for today. And
Well done, Will.
thank
Wow.
you. I'm sure I missed quite a bit, but like I said, I'm planning on being there at the Memphis and Charleston Model Railroad in coming
August
up
2nd
August, yeah, early August, and
or
happy to
3rd.
take
3rd, I think it is. Yeah, Monday.
and I'm
Yeah.
happy to take any kind of questions if anybody has anything now, or if you forget, don't worry, you'll see me in August hopefully. So
Looking forward to seeing you again. Great job.
Yeah,
thank you,
great
so
job,
much.
Will.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to put that together. That was, yeah, it's always great to see anybody's techniques and how they do any of the modeling,
Totally.
yeah, and at the very least for me, it's motivational. It gets me going, keeps the juices flowing and the boiler
Oh,
hot.
good. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I get to most out of it too. And Tom, you're an amazing modeler, and I think back on when I go to the group events, they're really cool. I mean, there's always just a little something for everybody in this group. If you're in it for the history, that's clearly there. Or and I can't remember this guy's name, but he like wheeled in a layout into the hotel, and I just kind of went wild over that.
Was that Dave Borkman?
Or
It might have been.
Joe.
It was in Chattanooga
Yeah.
years back, and I had a
Oh, is
picture of
that
it.
Bernie's layout, Joel?
It wasn't Bernie's, but but
Yeah,
but again, yeah, seeing
maybe
Bernie's
Joe.
layout,
Oh, Joel. Was it the N scale layout?
yes,
Oh,
yeah.
that's Joel.
It's
Yeah.
Okay,
me.
cool.
Yeah, it'll be
I
there.
love, there's just, yeah, like you said, Tom, it just gets those juices firing, and yeah, going back to that little guy in Fort Morgan that I was after those little toy
Yeah.
soldiers. I mean, that's it for me.
Matter of
And
fact, Bernie added 4 feet to the N-scale layout.
oh, cool. Oh,
And
that's great.
Roger Rossi has added 4 feet. And
Mark?
Mark's got a couple of feet in there. So
I
it's
love it.
it's it's going to be a little bit bigger. And I may have a couple of in progress works for Bristow Station, which will be right next door to you, Mark.
Love it.
Just to give you guys an idea of the convention, Joel's always on point for our special interest group. And all the SIGs are going to be in one room. And I remember when we first talked to some of the guys that are coordinating this convention, um, through an email, we got such a reception of enthusiasm that we were coming, okay, where they knew about us and they were hoping we'd come. So this is just me making this up, but I think they're so happy that we're there. They're putting our SIG right in the middle of this entire room with all these other SIGs. So it's like we got center stage to some degree. And I think, it's going to be fantastic. And yeah, I'm just so jazzed about going to this thing. Cool clinics. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Any other comments or questions, gentlemen?
Oh, for me, I mean, this is just my thought process, but the last picture that you had with the water tank,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just my opinion, it should have 3 women swimming in it.
Petticoat Junction.
I think we have
Yeah, but the
we
soap
got something
woods the
like
water then, and it messes up the boilers.
Right.
Right. Right.
Actually, I was looking at the two figures, and
right.
the one on the right
Let
looked
me pull
to
it back
me
up.
just like one of the figures from Brian Camerer's movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Isn't
I
it?
should have. Thank you, DC. I should have mentioned camera as a big inspo to me. And rest in peace.
That guy on the right looks like one of the
Yeah,
characters from his movie.
Yeah.
yeah.
Great job.
Yeah. That's a blunder on my part for not including a slide or two about Brian. He's been a big inspiration in our process and in my creative process in this project. And the other great locomotive chase, if you haven't seen it, track it down. AI could never hold a candle to what this man did as far as animating, uh, figures and paper puppets. I mean, incredible.
Well, Will, once again, thank you so much, man. This was
No, of
great.
course.
And maybe at a future meet, we'd have you come in and show us how you do murals.
Be happy to. I think I could do another presentation on murals and maybe even another one on like the landscape stuff. Or maybe they could do both because they kind of merge together. But
Okay.
I'd be
Yeah, I
happy to
mean,
put that together at some point. Yeah.
we could do maybe October, November, December, sometime in the fall, winter, if you're okay with that.
Cancel me in. I'll be happy.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah, because the mural work is I'm pretty sure it's all finished.
Is it finished, Charlie?
Oh, it's pretty close. It's
Pretty
real
close.
close.
Yeah.
Pretty close, he says. Well,
I mean, close works. I feel like we've said close. What is close only works with hand grenades and model
No.
railroads.
No, you never say never.
Right.
And as a skier, you never say this is the last run, So this way I can have Will chained to the table a little longer.
That's true. I mean, there have always been whispers of another peninsula,
Ooh, Nashville.
Nashville, and how that would kind of need some work.
Right.
So I'm available. Like I said, it's a legacy project. I've worked on many projects, but this one is the one I continue to come back to, and that is such a privilege for me as an artist to have kind of like a Sistine Chapel in a sense
Yep.
of like this thing that I'd be just continue to get to work on over the years, and I'm in no way on any level near Michelangelo, but I'm just as a reference. But
Yeah.
but
Well, I'm
it's
sure
been a
if
pleasure.
anybody wants to employ you with some figures, they got you guys, his email address is on the link.
And
And
I will share this whole presentation. I know it's being videoed, but I'll share the link to it so you can go through it slide by slide if you want to on the Discord. I know for start, but I can put it anywhere. It's just on my Google Drive. So
great.
I can talk to you, Tom, about that,
Yep.
backstage, and we can I can let
Coordinate
that.
it.
And yeah, and my contact info is on all of that as well.
Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We will see you in August and some of you in Chattanooga. All the best, guys.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Bye.